Welcome back, dear listeners, to another episode of An Unexpected Art Lesson, the show where we talk about everything you didn't know about art. Speaking of how, this is a community movement, how has the work inspired by Caravaggio impacted the people who view it? Whether in the world of video games or in the world of street art?
That is a good question. I'd say let's start with the idea of how games relate to art in this particular light. Some of the big notes here would be things such as the recognition of games that are employing painterly techniques. One of the games we previously discussed, Okami, is a great example again of that. But other games do take these moments to create an artistic version or even render the world in paint, such as even Dark Souls and the Painted World of Aramis. The idea of museum exhibitions actually exploring the artistic lineage of game design, so how certain games have helped reshape the way stories are being told. How at one point, even games such as Doom, they went from these very grainy, kind of the 16-bit era, evolving to a game where you immediately have to survive with only a flashlight, and then that people realizing that, hey, we can actually change this up, so instead there's more of the world that you can see, and you are still being brought into this spectacle instead of being left to your own imagination.
Part of that is due to improvements in technology to where people are actually able to create those more realistic images and graphics in video games and still have them be affordable and accessible. But it also says a lot that they leaned into that. They went with that. People chose to explore and try new things when they could have just stuck with what everyone else was doing. Because, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But also, why not try new things? Why not see what happens if you... For some reason, Splatoon popped in my head. I don't know if you're overly familiar with that game.
Oh, yes.
But... yeah, where you're these little squidlings, and you can travel through paint, and you're spraying paint everywhere, and just the fun vividness of the images, and the brightness of the colors, and just the facial expressions on the characters. Yes, it's significantly more cartoony than some of the other examples, but that just kind of popped in my head when you mentioned video games using painting-like styles. Was Splatoon. You can blame one of my college roommates for that. I watched her play it quite a lot. It was fun.
It's one of those games that I have once again been horribly reminded that I am terrible at when it comes to player versus player. But yeah, it is such a unique concept that it helps define a genre, and you do see that then other games were partially inspired by that and even create their own little takes on these shooter-style games. And even then, the art language kind of evolves.
I think there is a story to Splatoon as well, which is interesting. So even the super simple, kind of cheesy, silly-looking games, there's more to the story. Which I like, because it's okay for a game to be, lighthearted and silly. But it's always interesting when there is a story if you feel like going to look for it. When you find it, you get to explore the story along with the characters.
I'm still so confused on the tempura shrimp dude, but...
It's fine, don't worry about it.
It's just it's the North and South thing, but with shrimp.
And you also mentioned museums. There's a National Video Game Museum not far from where I live. And the walls are just covered in art of different characters from different games, so you can see all the styles lined up and layered together. Video games are absolutely an art, and some games, the artists decide they're going to do something different. And it's stunning. It actually reminds me of a indie game that I played. I still need to go back and finish it because it means I'm distracted. But it was called The Last Stitch Goodnight. So part of the story is you are stuck in this building where they're investigating you because your soul can like leave your body and go and interact with things and then come back. So they're like trying to figure out how, but you have to use that to try and escape. So you just pop out and you're just this little ball of light that can travel around, and it has a bit of cartoony comic design, but it's still very visually interesting and plays around with light and dark, and it's fun. I was at an indie game convention when I found out about that, but I'm like, okay, this looks neat.
Huh. Gives me a new viewpoint on that as well. Interesting.
I could just keep ADHDing my way around different topics of conversation. If you need a minute to figure out where your brain cell went.
Oh, it got chased down the stairs by Artie. I heard the crash.
Ah.
Getting back to this, though, some of the other interesting things is, of course, that games that do have styles that kind of push the artistic boundaries and create new ideas and concepts, this helps players develop other visual literacy through exposure to these classic compositional techniques. So you see one beautifully rendered 2D game, it helps inspire others to then create their own takes with this. So this is what kind of helps inspire things like the Dark Souls genre.
And people will then go and make different sorts of art inspired by what they saw in those games. Like, people do prints and posters and buttons and stickers of these characters, and sometimes it might be a direct reference to the game that they recreated, or sometimes it could be a completely new sort of like setup, like have an art of a very serious character but make it chibi and they're wearing like a little doctor's outfit or something like that. Just all the different visual takes on these images, and it's always fun. I love seeing fan art. Well, most of what the fan art I usually end up looking at is from audio mediums, but seeing fan art from things that also have the visual component as well, because the artists have a bit more of a sort of confined space that they can play within, but they can still make things that inspire maybe another story entirely. And it gets people interested in art.
Yeah, the sheer amount of art created that is just inspired by people creating these new stories, the world that is told here, these artists then take their ideas of it and they further expand upon it, which, wholly convoluted statement. I hope that made more sense to you listeners than it did to me saying it.
The artists take something that inspires them and build on it to make things that maybe will go on and inspire other people. So I've had enough coffee today to translate for Watson.
Unfortunately, being able to translate for me means there is no cure.
It's fine. That's what you have friends for.
Fair enough. Continuing on. It does help reinforce the idea that games do create these emotionally resonant experiences, be it defeating Melania, Blade of Mikola, and that wench has yet to know defeat when I'm fighting her, but it's still even just that simple experience. How many people have listened to this and have heard of that particular character and, well, either played or heard of somebody playing through it and getting trounced. But at the same time, there's this rich backstory to this character, and it is fascinating to just know a simple couple of lines and this character helped inspire so much lore.
Yeah, and with I see a note here about historically rooted visual language. It just makes me think of, in the Mass Effect trilogy, There's this wall that you run by on the ship that's on the ship through all 3 games. Or at least 2 of the games. I don't remember if it's in the first one. But it's a wall where they keep track of the crew members who've died. Just their names are on that wall, and as the games go on, you can see more and more and more names being added of people who you as the player got to know. And then, spoilers, but this game has been out forever. One of the cutscenes in the end has the NPC who is the closest to your Shepherd putting Shepherd's name placard on the wall. Simple image, deeply profound, and just some of that history is built throughout the game. Also, it's just a common tradition to have walls and murals and so forth dedicated to remembering those who have passed in these historically climactic moments. Just also makes me kind of want to cry a little bit.
Which does show the emotional impact and the idea that video games can carry the same amount of resonance as a painting to the right person.
And sometimes lighting plays a lot into that. Which Caravaggio was one of the first painters to start playing with that in a meaningful way. I'm not going to say he was the very first, he's just one of. He started taking things in a bit of a different direction.
Exactly, he's the one that challenged the norms.
Normal's boring. Take something normal and make it weird.
I believe normal is just a setting on a dishwasher.
I thought it was a setting on a washing machine. One of the two.
One of those two.
Still boring. Depends on the appliance.
Fair enough, yeah. I often question how my dishwasher operates, but mostly I think it just keeps going out of spite.
It works though, that's the important part. And speaking of things that are important, urban transformation, the impact that this art has on the community.
It is a very interesting topic in regards to that. So while video games have made a more personal experience for the viewer and brought them into this world, urban transformation, and especially the creation of art in places that there may not always be art. These massive murals created by these street artists have often become local landmarks. What this does is it creates tourism and a chance for neighborhoods that don't necessarily see the same influx of viewers or people from out of town, and even just bringing in new viewpoints. These street artists often do use their work for good, and just that in such a simple way of they put their work out there. It's seen and recognized by others, but at the same time, it helps those art inspires those around you.
I actually have a good example of that. It didn't necessarily start with street art, but there is a song talking about going down the street in Winslow, Arizona, which Winslow is this tiny little town. But that song drew attention to it. When I was in Arizona earlier this year, we went to Winslow and we had lunch near the corner that was mentioned in the song. And they have a little restaurant and a little museum. There's a lot of it is built up around Route 66 and that song, Taking It Easy. And there were these 2 statues that were made of the 2 characters in the song, and you could tell people are constantly stopping to take pictures with them because it's from the song. And you can see where some of the varnish is worn off. There's a bit of gold to it where those statues have been touched by a lot of people. And the dude who made the statue was there when we got to see it.
Oh, cool!
Yeah, his statues are really famous. Most people don't know his name. I will admit I have forgotten his name because I'm bad with those. But just that one song put that town on the map.
Huh.
It's a cool little place if you ever get a chance to visit. I also highly recommend Page.
Those are some funky sounding small towns.
Yeah, Page is very, very pretty.
The other thing, of course, is with the creation of the street art, public spaces that are transformed from just these public spaces to galleries for emotional and spiritual expression. So artists who want to have something to say or feel that it would something that they would say would resonate with the community, they can create these pieces and display them for everyone. It's no longer just reserved for a gallery. It is their art was intended for everyone, so everyone gets to see it.
And it brings more people who bring more art and tell more stories and then go tell their friends about it. Which is good for the economy, because those people need a place to eat and sleep and get gas. Which over time inspires pride in those communities, in their history and their heritage. It can give them a place to show off some of the local art that may not normally get as much attention, but you're in this cool place where this person did this thing, and here, this is unique art that you haven't seen anywhere else. Sure, I'll get it. Kind of bolster the local artistic heritage with the hype train of the other pieces.
And that is kind of one of the greatest things that street artists are known for, is not only creating art, but inspiring others to create art alongside it.
Indeed. And it can be educational, too. Get people curious, have them start asking questions.
Yeah, you literally actually beat me to the punch on that next point. Well played! And, of course, educational impacts of this is things such as street art tours that do connect classical with contemporary techniques. So people who enjoy talking about this do tours. They kind of help explain just the same things that we are, maybe with less ADHD side quests, but it still kind of helps connect these 2 points together. The other thing is even game design. So a lot of game designers nowadays, if they are doing work set in the past, so even some of the Assassin's Creed games, that's an example here, the idea to study art history to improve upon that visual storytelling narrative.
Yeah, and not only just the art history, but the history of that time and place, even if you aren't going to follow it specifically, which it's okay if you deviate a little. It still helps to know what actually happened, so you can play off of that to maybe make a more intriguing story, or make it silly and ridiculous. I'm just forever impressed that when Notre Dame burned, the rebuilding was greatly helped by 3D models of the cathedral from an Assassin's Creed game, because they were the most accurate.
Okay, that is pretty cool.
Yeah, just such a great fun fact.
Although that does actually kind of lead into my next point too. Younger artists discovering classical techniques through contemporary media. So seeing something such as Arcane and wanting to know more about kind of the impressionistic art language used within that show, it leads people to discovering these artists that help inspire it.
Yeah, you see something that's visually cool, you get curious, and you just eventually, even if you aren't ADHD, hyperfixated, attracted to shiny things,
Squirrel!
If you're curious about it, you start researching, and who knows what fascinating things you'll find and what you'll be inspired by.
And that is kind of the beauty of seeing where these styles intersect, which, again, it helps inspire the cross-medium appreciation that you can see between traditional art and the gaming street art communities. It's not one or the other. It both can find resonance and strengthen the ideas within each other.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
I'm honestly impressed I said it correctly-ish at all.
Good job. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of An Unexpected Art Lesson, the show where we talk about everything you didn't know about art. Stay tuned next week to hear Watson and I continue discussing the art and influence of Caravaggio. If you like what we're doing, you can follow us on social media and join the conversation over at An Unexpected Art Lesson on Threads, Blue Sky, and Substack. And you can also support us over on Patreon. Get early access to episodes and other fun things at patreon.com/anunexpectedartlesson.